Welcome to The Founder's Mind. This is your host, Adam Muchler. On today's episode, I have Rachel, the founder of UPace, a fitness engagement app, and one of the organizers of DC Startup Week. Listen in as Rachel discusses being a non-technical founder of a tech platform and other great lessons she's picked up along the way. Rachel, thank you for being on The Founder's Mind.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to talk to you. I know we had a conversation back at Dolceza a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Place I love people to start is just tell the listeners a little bit about you, the company you're working on. What's up?
Sure. So I am the founder and CEO of UPace. We are a customizable mobile platform for recreation centers. And our goal is to create stronger recreation communities through better engagement, predictive analytics, and utilizing data for helping these centers learn more about how to make their centers operate more efficiently.
Nice. When we met before, I think I mentioned this, that I saw you at a pitch competition that Humble Ventures and some Northern Virginia Board of Commerce, it was like the USPTO or something. And I was intrigued. And then we kind of found each other again. Maybe I followed up with you on LinkedIn or something. I don't remember. But from what I saw then, it looked like you were working on something cool. And now you've got things rolling now. I'm always curious, and I think people find this interesting. What got you started with UPace, with this problem, with the company that you're working on?
It started with my own personal frustration at my university rec center. When you went, you had to sign up on a whiteboard if you wanted to use any treadmills, ellipticals, or bikes. And typically you would get there and everything would be signed up for the next hour. So it was completely pointless. And for group fitness classes, you got a little yellow card and that represented your reservation. And really what I noticed of myself and my friends and my peers on campus, they just stopped using the facility, coming after just frustration after a couple of weeks and months while being on campus. And I realized that technology could make the biggest impact of streamlining what's going on at the center, making reservations, getting alerts and reminders to create a healthier student body on campus. But it wasn't until after I graduated that I took a couple months of just doing informational interviews with people who were students at other universities, other different types of recreation centers, as well as directors of these centers to learn more about the actual problem, to make sure that it wasn't just a problem that my university had,
Sure,
that it actually was widespread. And hearing their excitement and how much this was needed was just kind of what I needed to kind of pull the trigger and say, let's get started.
What was that moment where you thought to yourself, this is something that I want to do, this is something I think I can do? Because obviously the informational interviews was after that, whatever that moment was.
Yes. So at that time, I just was a college graduate. I was deciding if I wanted to pursue the startup life or, take a full-time job.
Yeah.
And what the advice I got at that time was start conducting informational interviews. Mm-hmm. Make sure that this is a widespread problem. Make sure this is a solution that the directors of centers as well as the members would be willing to use. But it wasn't until I got a full-time job offer that I was like, no, I can't do this. I was like, this is my right path, is to become an entrepreneur and to give, this idea a full try and go ahead. So that was my defining moment where it felt right to start a company.
When staring down the barrel of traditional work life and non-traditional, you said, I'm going to go for it.
At that time, I figured, why not? I'm young. I could take this chance and I could take this risk. And I had a lot of positive feedback, a lot of potential pilots lined up.
Okay.
So it just felt right.
That's awesome. So clearly in the interviews, you were getting a pretty good picture of that there was interest.
Exactly. And that was the point of doing the informational interviews, was to really figure out if there was interest and just learn more about different problems and how these centers were communicating what those problems are. So that when I built out, our MVP, the minimum viable product for that first step, that we were solving enough of it to get them to say yes to purchase the product, as well as for it to make an impact at their center and for their members.
But it was sort of in the process of before going all in, do these interviews.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. What gets you energized about UPace and the work that you're doing right now?
I think the biggest thing that gets me energized every day is hearing feedback from our clients and their members utilizing our mobile platform, especially hearing how it's made a difference. I remember recently a girl told me like it helped them feel more comfortable in the gym environment, of getting them to go earlier on their freshman year, to people creating better active lifestyle habits through our reservation tools and our features. One new feature that I'm really excited about that's been getting me energized is our predictive analytics tool to know when and how to re-engage a member.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been really exciting working with this technology and adding it into our platform to really increase that member experience and really learn their habits and their patterns in the app, and to know when to predict a new program that they might be interested in, and also when to re-engage them. Maybe if they stopped going to the facility, or life happens and all of a sudden you haven't gone to the gym in a week, that we'll be able to know that and then ping them at the right time of reminding them that their favorite class with that favorite instructor is happening on Tuesday. So I'm excited to see this fall, once this feature goes live, of how it really makes an impact with our clients and upcoming clients.
Nice. And when I think about re-engagement efforts, I come from a digital loyalty background a little bit, at least the startup I worked at. And it was about getting people to spend money again. But this, for me, sounds more about just getting people back into the gym. And if you're at a university, it's not like you're paying per visit. It's already baked into the costs, right?
Yes, exactly. And it ties into, our main goal of the application is creating stronger recreation communities where their members and their students are more engaged, whether on campus or at the physical gym location. Mm-hmm. And that's where we see this predictive analytics feature being very helpful, is knowing how to re-engage them. So it doesn't really tie back to like the revenue of the loyalty, but it also ties back to the whole goal. If you're on a college campus, it's getting the student to utilize the facility for 4 years. If it's one of our community rec centers, it's more about making sure they keep their membership going every year, every month. So that's where it can tie back to revenue there.
It's a nice balance. I just think about that, where some re-engagement efforts are really about getting people to spend more, like I said earlier. And as you mentioned, this is really about getting people to use what they are already paying for, and not to mention it's healthy to keep working.
Yes.
I know that you probably don't experience any challenges because there are no challenges in having a startup.
Oh, yeah.
But if there was one that came to mind, what would you say is a challenge that you're working through or that you've worked through that's kind of left a mark?
Well, of course, there's a ton every day. But one of the biggest ones that I first started was that I'm not a technical founder of the company. And a lot of people, the advice and the tips was that I needed to find a technical co-founder. And I wasn't able to do that. So I started the company as a solo founder of UPace. And that had a lot of challenges at the beginning, is figuring out how do you hire a developer, what specific development tools do you want to be utilizing, and how to make sure essentially the product gets built from the idea phase to the actual product in people's hands. And that was a huge learning curve. And I faced a lot of challenges of figuring out, how do I create a tech startup? And I found a lot of really great mentors and conducted a lot of informational interviews along the way that made the biggest difference for me. But I think the biggest thing that I want to convey to any of the listeners out of here, that you don't have to necessarily be a technical person to find and implement and launch a technical platform. And I think a lot of it is just finding the mentors to help guide you and help give you like tidbits along the way. I remember having a couple of interviews with developers where I had one of my mentors on the call, and she would text me questions to ask and guide me throughout that process of really figuring out who's that right person to bring on to the team.
I think that there's two really great points. One, you don't have to be technical to start a technical company. And I think the other part is it depends. You still have to surround yourself with great resources, even if you don't have the CTO, or a technical co-founder. Any insight, any advice on how you got your first couple mentors, or that mentor that really made a difference?
So one of the best advice I would have of looking and trying to find the mentor that's right for you is first know what type of mentor you're looking for. If it's in marketing, if it's technical, or someone to help you mentor within sales. And once you're able to identify the type of mentorship is be open and willing to ask for help. Go to events, look on LinkedIn or other tools, and have your ask ready. Be willing to share your idea. And most importantly, convey how excited you are for this idea that you're working on. And if you're able to get them excited for it, most of the time they're very much willing to help. One other piece of advice that one of my mentors told me was that when he first started, he had a mentor himself. And that what he asked for me in turn was be willing to pay it forward. Mm-hmm. Once I was at a point in my career to be willing to give advice and have mentees, to be willing to do that in that concept of paying it forward from not one step to the next.
Yeah.
So maybe make sure that you're able to convey that you're going to be willing to take this advice and one day be able to pass it along to another entrepreneur who comes along your way asking for help.
Nice. What's something that's keeping you up at night? Related to this, obviously.
There is a lot keeping me up at night. I would say, what is keeping me up at night?
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that's keeping me up right now is really around growing our team here at UBase. And it's finding the right individuals with the right passion, the work ethic, and really wanting to get involved within a startup ecosystem and culture of the hours. And especially as we're a smaller team, it's finding those right people in all the different fields, specific technical that we're looking for right now.
Cool. I think, and we had a little conversation before, but one of the things that I think about is the impact when you have a small team, on finding that right person and taking the time to have those conversations and figure out what the relationship was like. You mentioned passion. I think culture fit's really big. And you're less than 10 people, right?
Yes.
So when you're under 10 people, I think, and you can Google this, look it up, and fact check me, I might be wrong, which is very possible. But when your team is small, the culture is still very malleable. And once you start getting to 10, 15, closer to 20, you start to set the culture. So this is, it's an important phase when you're building the team at this stage. What's one of the more impactful pieces of advice you've received as a founder?
One advice I received before actually founding the company was to be ready to hear a lot of no's, but to not let them get you down because it's that one yes that matters. And just hearing that and knowing that when you start and having that mentality is that you're looking for that yes. And you're going to hear a lot of rejections, a lot of non-believers, or especially in sales, people who might not go for your platform, but it's the ones that are your early adopters are the ones that make the biggest difference for you. And that's something that it's easier to say than it is to do, especially as a founder, you always want to hear those yeses.
Yeah.
But to take those no's and to learn from them and to grow from them and use that as a tool to get you your next yes.
I love that piece of advice because it's something that I experience in my own business in growing, executive coaching practice. More people say no to coaching with me than say yes, and that's okay because I can't coach everyone. I can coach a certain amount of people, and that's kind of the inevitability, in that process. And it's true. That's when people say the grind or the hustle, for startups or for being an entrepreneur. I think that those are umbrella statements, and there are all these components under there,
Yeah, for sure. And it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of determination, and really mentally, you also have to be strong along the process of being able to go through the ups and the downs and getting through the hurdles and being able to celebrate the excitement that happens at the startup and your successes.
Awesome. What's one thing you wish you knew in the beginning that you know now?
At first, I was going to say how to code, but I don't know that now, so that doesn't help me. Well, that definitely would have been a little bit helpful at the beginning. I think at the beginning, I wish I knew more about how to sell. That's definitely something that I'm not. I'm not a sales representative. I didn't really have experience in sales. And over the last couple of years of growing the company, it's something that I've been able to develop like those skills and learning best how to like communicate the product and our vision and who we are. But I think something that I learned now is I'm glad that I didn't start out necessarily with that route, because it allowed me to foster a lot of really great relationships of approaching it as less of a sale, but more of a conversation and more of a tool to get feedback and mentorship.
Yeah, there's a saying that I really like, which is ask for advice and get money. Ask for money and get advice. And people talk about that when raising money, but I think it's also very relevant with sales. If you have a product or a service and you're talking to someone about it and you're sort of ideating and, just having a conversation, you might end up with that business relationship.
Exactly. And that's what ended happening for us. So I think it was a great tool and something that we still do today. It's more about fostering a conversation and how we can help and have them provide advice on how they could see the product working for them and different things that we could grow the product into. And it's fostered really great relationships, but it's also really helpful to learn and understand specific sales tools and techniques of kind of knowing on how to bring from that first conversation to how to close the deal and get them to physically launch the product.
Yeah. What's one piece of advice you would give yourself now?
So I would give my advice myself now is to never forget about the importance of self-care.
Yeah.
I always hear people talking about it, but it's so hard to do. And it's just sometimes I have to remind myself of the weekends is like take some time to have some fun, or sometimes go out with friends and do something that's not work.
Yeah.
And what I find is that when I do that, you come back a lot more energetic and ready to kind of tackle the next challenge or the next phase within the business. But it's definitely something that I forget about a lot. So I think if I had to give myself advice, so tell me to keep remembering that and maybe putting some time in my calendar of self-care activities to go do a hike on the weekend or go to my favorite class or play tennis, something that kind of forces myself out of the office and out of in front of my computer or my cell phone.
I think about that a lot for myself and for clients. It comes down to, for me and for them, maybe for you, how productive or successful can you actually be if you're not healthy or if you're not taking care of yourself or taking breaks? And burnout is real. A lot of research, lots of examples. And, if you or myself or anyone's not taking the time, like you said, to create that space, it's going to happen. It's inevitable if you don't give yourself
100% agree.
Yeah. Who's a founder that you admire and why?
So one of the women founders that I admire is Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank and for her real estate efforts. And one of the traits I admire is how she got started and built the company from nothing to be multi-millions of dollars. But more importantly, what I admire about her is her willingness to give back and give support and advice to other entrepreneurs. And she focuses a lot on women entrepreneurs. And I think hearing that story and having her be as an example of a woman who's found so much success, but is willing to still get her hands dirty and still provide the resources and tools to other entrepreneurs who are just starting is the biggest quality in her that I admire and hope to be able to do that one day.
Nice. I always find it interesting, obviously being a white man, there are plenty of examples of founders, and there are a lot of celebrity, CEOs and founders that come to mind. But I think I appreciate and admire people finding founders and CEOs that sort of create this path for them. So obviously as a woman, finding those female founders, and, there aren't as many examples, but there are really, really great examples out there. So in the podcast, I learn all the time. Like, I didn't know who that was. I probably recognize her face in association with Shark Tank, but not the name or sort of real estate or anything like that.
Yeah, it's always interesting to hear different entrepreneurs' stories of how they got started, the challenges they faced. And it was interesting to hear her story in particular and how she was able to take those challenges to make herself more successful just through the determination and just that quality of saying, there's no plan B. My plan A is going to work.
Yeah. It's like biting down and not letting go. There's almost, for some reason, this idea of like a pit bull, which nothing against pit bulls, and some people will take this however, but like there's this like tenacity, you know, and like this never let go mentality that I think most very successful founders have, where, and you reference it in the beginning, you know, like people are going to tell you no, they're going to be naysayers, and you have to have this tenacity and grit, you know, to say, I don't care. Like, I'm not going to stop, and I'm going to keep going because I believe in this thing.
Exactly. The other day, someone asked me, like, what would you do if you didn't have UPace, or what would be your plan B? And I was like, there's no plan B. There's nothing else I would do. Like, this is it. Like, this is going to work. And it's funny because I feel like the founders who might have that second plan B, you're not necessarily biting down and holding on.
Yeah.
So that would be, you know, one thing is that don't let those no's create you to have that plan B.
Yeah.
Keep waiting for those yeses.
Keep pushing.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like you never know what's right around the corner. And sometimes you just like, it's a little bit blind faith at times, but really holding out to get around that bend. It will be clear when the end is, when you've reached the end. If it's an exit, you know, if it's an IPO, if it's you get acquired, or if you run out of money, it will be very obvious. But until it's very obvious, in my mind, there's this keep going. And even when things stop, there's always that next thing that comes up. What's something you learned recently that blew your mind?
One thing that's so simple, I read a book recently about how to become a better communicator.
Uh-huh.
And one thing that it talked about in the book, and I've been testing it out and it's been working, is when you ask for a meeting with someone or set it up, to use the word good in that. So instead of saying, when can you meet? It's like, when is a good time to meet? Or will Thursday at 11 a.m. be a good time? Mm-hmm. And it makes the difference in someone's mind is to correlate that word good, that this is going to be a positive conversation or positive meeting. So they're more likely to say yes to it. And I've been using that in our sales tactics and meetings that we've been working on. And pretty much everyone that I've put the word good in there has said yes, and it's been a confirmed meeting. And it seems so simple, but it works.
That's amazing.
And that blew my mind. I was like, how did I not know that before? But it's been working for me.
That's incredible. Yeah, I've got the mind blown emoji in my mind's eye right now. These are kind of the last two questions. The one I just asked, and they're not really related to being a founder. What's one thing the world is missing in your mind?
Ooh, what's the world is missing?
Yeah.
Challenging question. I think the world is missing, and I guess this is a non-founder question.
That's fine. You can do anything you want.
Oh my God, what the world is missing.
It could be founder, it could be non-founder.
So the biggest thing the world is missing, I think, is love.
Yeah.
And that sounds so cheesy, but I think that everything going on with like politics and even within like the startup ecosystem, sometimes just, you know, remind yourself that we should support one another like in our goals and have like open, honest conversation. I think if we approach it with a more loving attitude, we could actually get more stuff done and be more successful either as a country, as a world, but also, you know, back down to the startup ecosystem, that if we're willing to show each other support and be open to having these conversations, it could help both companies grow and become more successful.
I think that's a really, honestly, I love that answer. But when you talked about it and when you sort of broke it down, things that came to my mind were like compassion, collaboration, you know, and these things that are crucial when you're talking about teamwork, but also, like you said, community. And I don't know what song or track it was, but Jay-Z and Beyonce just came out with a new album and it's by the Carters, which I love. But there's this intro, and I don't know who's recording, whose voice it is, but it's not theirs. And it comes down to that, you know, like they talk about what the world's missing, and it comes down to like this idea of compassion, you know, and that we are not cultivating this community, you know. And I think you bring up a really good point, especially in the startup space. Like founding a startup and running a startup is really hard. Like it's exhausting. You feel like you might constantly be on the brink of failing. People are going to tell you you're going to fail. You know, like people are just going to say to your face, this isn't a good idea, especially if you've raised money. You'll get a lot of no's, you know, not even just selling. And I think having that network, kind of what you're talking about, being that person and having people that are that person for you, that's supportive, that's compassionate, maybe that's all under that love umbrella,
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think from the entrepreneur's perspective is, as an entrepreneur and as you meet other entrepreneurs, is be willing to have those conversations, have those open conversations. Like, today is just a bad day. And being able to share that with someone who's like-minded and in the same shoes could really help you overcome those bad days. And maybe they've already had that day and they figured out a good way to overcome it, either what challenge that might be that's causing that. And I think being able to show that compassion towards one another does make a really big difference in the long term. And people remember that. People remember when you're compassionate towards them, and then they're typically willing to help you. And I think that's something that we forget a lot about the times we get so involved in what we're working on and what we're doing. We kind of forget to open our eyes to what's going on around us.
Yeah, it's very easy to get tunnel vision, especially when we want things, like, not just we want things, but the world is expecting things to move quickly. Like the expectation of what is growth at a startup, or if you've raised money or you're going to raise money, everyone talks about that hockey stick growth, and it becomes this crazy expectation that isn't necessarily the only answer, and it colors everything. Awesome. Well, Rachel, this was really great. I appreciate you being on the Founder's Mind, and it was really awesome getting a chance to talk to you. One of the parting thoughts that I like to ask for is, what's the best way to follow you online, your company, to check in, to see what's up with UPace? Where do people find you?
Yeah, you can find us on our website at www.upaceapp.com, and that's UPACEAPP. And you also can follow us on social media at UPace app. So we'd love to hear from you, hear any of your ideas, feedback, as well as if you know any rec centers that could be of interest in our platform, please reach out to us and we would love to talk to them.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Founder's Mind. On the next episode, Ruth Chandler Cook joins us. She's the founder of Hire Her, a recruiting platform with a focus on creating a more diverse and inclusive hiring process. To make sure you don't miss any awesome wisdom from guests and stay up to date on the most recent episodes of The Founder's Mind, be sure to visit thefoundersmind.com. You can also follow along on social at The Founder's Mind. I look forward to sharing future episodes with you all, and if you like what you're hearing on the show, take a moment to rate and review The Founder's Mind. It would mean a lot and is greatly appreciated. Until next time, take care.
Going through all of this insanity and try to bring new ideas, make them a reality. Illuminate in the thoughts, make it a priority to implement what you learn. What you get is what you be. In a world full of noise, hard to find that clarity to try to lead subtly, never full of vanity, and try to change something small or try to change humanity. Power forward through the dark, Founder's Mind is what you see. Founder's Mind is what you see.